For most Romans, the day began at dawn and ended at dusk. In a world without strong artificial lighting, darkness meant danger and inactivity. The streets after sundown were poorly lit and often unsafe. So, when night fell, the common Roman stayed close to home, venturing out only to the nearest taberna, a local tavern that doubled as a lifeline. These tabernae were more than just watering holes. They were the heartbeat of Roman neighborhoods, offering quick food, strong drink, and a temporary escape from the tight, smoky confines of insulae, the cramped apartment blocks where most Romans lived. Kitchens were rare luxuries, so if you wanted a warm meal, the tavern was your best and often only option. The food was simple but satisfying: bread, cheese, olives, roast chickpeas, sausages, and sometimes a stew. In Pompeii, archaeologists estimate there was at least one tavern for every 100 residents, a staggering density that reflects just how central these places were to daily life. Rome's own network must have been equally vast, perhaps even more so. While many taverns served food to go, some featured built-in booths or rough-hewn tables where patrons could sit and eat. These were noisy, crowded, and usually smoky places, filled with the aroma of cheap wine and sweat, the clatter of dice, and the shouts of gamblers and drunkards. One fresco from a tavern in Pompeii captures this perfectly. Two men are shown, mid-game, arguing over the outcome of a dice throw. "I've got it. That's a winning roll," claims one. "That's a 2, not a 3, retorts the other. In the next panel, fists fly and the bar's owner throws them out. In another scene from the same tavern, a waitress delivers wine to two men arguing over who ordered first. "Over here," shouts one. "No, it's mine," claims the other. The weary waitress snaps, "Whoever wants it, take it." Despite their popularity, taverns had a notorious reputation among Rome's upper class. The satirist Juvenal mocked them as breeding grounds for thugs, assassins, and fugitive slaves. Centuries later, the historian Ammianus Marcellinus would condemn the Roman poor for gambling and lounging in bars all night, and, curiously, for snorting. Roman emperors even tried to regulate these places. Concerned about public disorder, they occasionally passed laws limiting what kinds of food taverns could serve, but such rules did little to dampen their appeal. For most commoners, nightlife ended there, in a smoky corner of a taberna, with dice in one hand and a clay cup of sour wine in the other. But for the elite, night offered far grander spectacles. Rome had no fine restaurants, no exclusive clubs, because it didn't need them. The wealthy hosted their parties at home, in sprawling villas or hilltop mansions surrounded by lush gardens. These gatherings were not just about food. They were displays of wealth, power, and taste. When the rich partied, they did it with imperial flair. Emperor Tiberius once hosted a drinking session that lasted 2 days straight. Nero raced chariots in his palace gardens. Domitian hunted lions inside one of his villas. And Lucius Verus, in a single dinner for 12 guests, spent the equivalent of 6 million sesterces, a sum most men wouldn't earn in 1,000 lifetimes. Each guest left that night with an ornate carriage, complete with mules and a driver, as a party favor. The core of elite nightlife was the extravagant banquet, lavish affairs with 5 or more courses, exotic dishes, and live entertainment. Poets recited verse, acrobats and dancers performed. Sometimes things took a raunchier turn. One notable figure in this decadent world was the legendary drinker Tricongius, nicknamed 3-Gallon Guy, who could down 3 gallons of wine in one sitting. Another was Apicius, the infamous gourmand who burned through a vast fortune chasing the perfect meal. These men were exceptions, but they inspired plenty of imitators. Even tombstones echoed their spirit. One inscription, for a Roman woman proudly declares she loved to drink wine and have a good time. Slumming was another thrill for the elite. Bored aristocrats and sometimes even emperors would disguise themselves and wander into the rougher parts of town, seeking mischief. Nero roamed the streets in a wig, starting brawls and breaking shop windows. Emperor Otho and his entourage delighted in pranking drunks. Lucius Verus returned from one such outing with a black eye and a bruised ego. For the common people, nightlife rarely ventured beyond the tavern walls. For the wealthy, it was a continuous parade. From one villa to the next, through candlelit gardens and perfumed halls, across tables heavy with roasted peacocks and silver goblets of aged wine. So what was it like to be young, rich, and reckless in the Roman Empire? Let's imagine. An evening in Rome. A fictional reconstruction. It's a hot summer night in the 2nd century AD. The dog star burns beside the moon, and the marble floor beneath your feet is warm as blood. You are a young aristocrat with too much money and not nearly enough responsibility. You step out from your family's domus in a simple tunic, clay lamp in hand. Behind you trail 2 bodyguards, hulking former gladiators, alert but silent. As you descend into the lower quarters of the city, the smell of street food and sewage fills the air. The buildings lean in as if to whisper secrets. You pick a tavern, at random. Inside, a marble-topped bar, rough tables, a few drunk regulars, and 2 exhausted waitresses slinging drinks. There was a time you might have started a fight in a place like this. Tonight, you're here to gamble. At a corner table, 5 men are playing dice. You signal your guard to fetch a cup of the least offensive wine and stroll over. Before they can object, you toss a gold aureus onto the pile of copper coins. It gleams like a tiny sun. Eyes widen. That single coin is worth more than any of them. We'll earn this month. Mind if I join? You ask casually. They don't. The game is simple. Roll a 4 or 6, throw in a coin. A rare Venus throw, each die showing a different number, wins the pot. When your aureus hits the table, the atmosphere shifts. Bets fly. A crowd forms. By the 3rd round, a ragged man beside you throws a Venus. The room erupts in cheers. You clap him on the back, sip your sour wine, and head for the exit. But trouble follows gold. 2 men shadow you from the tavern, eyes sharp, hands twitching. You turn into an alley. Your guards, waiting in the shadows, pounce. Fists fly. Bones crack. You barely glance back. Then, bad luck. The city watch rounds the corner, torches held high. They see the bodies, the bruises, and you. You straighten your tunic, adopt your most aristocratic accent, and smile. Good evening, officers. These brigands attempted to rob me. Fortunately, my men intervened. I trust you'll see justice done. You hand the lead watchman a few silver coins. He salutes. The matter is closed. It's late, but the night's young. A friend is hosting a banquet uptown. You slip the doorman a bribe and stroll through the villa's massive gates. The feast is long over. You pass through a wreckage of peacock bones, amphorae, and empty couches. In the garden, soft music plays. Guests recline on cushions under oil lamps, half asleep and fully drunk. You slip onto an empty couch. A slave pours you chilled wine, adding snow from the mountains. The talk drifts to hangover cures, cabbage leaves, amethysts, avoiding cheap wine. Someone orders a vintage amphora opened. It's dreadful, but the 2nd cup's better. The 3rd? Divine. When you finally stagger out, the stars are fading. Birds begin to sing. You lean on your guard's shoulder, laughing at nothing at all, as the eternal city slumbers beneath the wheeling constellations.